Kim Lumley. I used to be a GP in Whetstone. I was lucky enough to retire a year ago, and I've been involved with the apiary at the Broomfield Community Orchard for the last 2 or 3 years. I first got into beekeeping about 4 or 5 years ago, more or less by accident. My neighbours, Addie and John Proctor, were beekeepers. They had a hive in the garden, and they asked me to train up to help them when they were on holiday. One afternoon in my surgery they rang me to say they'd had a swarm and they were collecting it and asked if they could put it in a hive in my garden. Trained with the Enfield beekeepers, who were excellent at running courses and providing ongoing support. And while I was there I met Paul Stiles, who had set up the apiary in the Broomfield Orchard with David March, who runs the orchard itself. And they had a thriving apiary with 3 hives, and I've remained working there with a small team ever since. It's an ideal spot, it's sheltered, a lovely environment for both us and the bees, and we benefit particularly by the trees around. In the spring we get a big blossom of horse chestnut, and then later in the summer lime trees, and the bees bring in a lot of nectar and pollen from these, and we can taste those in the lovely fruity honey that we produce.
I think the theory behind it is that the smoke sort of calms them, but also it potentially makes them feel that the hive may be on fire, so they go down into the brood box where the young is to protect it, which means that it's easier for you to actually inspect the frames within the hive and the other parts of the hive that might be what we call the super boxes where the honey is. And it also it perhaps distracts them from you and the fact that you've opened what is effectively their nest.
There's one hatching. Close up in here.
Yeah.
The other thing we have to do all through the year is to keep an eye on the health of the bees. They're threatened by various infections or infestations. In particular, there's a mite called Varroa, which came over from the east in the 1990s and now infests most hives in the country. We've been through this brood and only found 2 mites, which is a very light infestation, which is very good for the hive. If there's a heavy infestation, it'll affect the whole hive, and we then have to think about treating with chemical methods, which we'd really prefer not to do. Spotted one earlier. Here's one. Little brown beetle-like creature. It's moving around quite rapidly on the pupa. There are other infections, and last year we sadly lost one hive to an infection called European foul brood, and that's quite a procedure because we have to inform the National Bee Unit. The regional inspector then comes down and oversees the destruction of the hive, and we then have to wait till the following spring to get it all clear, which fortunately we've had this year. We've got some honeycomb here, which is mostly eaten, which is very tasty, and the jars of honey from last year. And this is what we call wax foundation. We buy it from the bee supplies shop, and it's beeswax which has been pressed into a honeycomb shape of hexagons, has wire to support it, and we put this into our frames and the bees build up their honeycomb shape of cells onto that. If we didn't put it in, the bees would quite happily make their own cells, and they'd make a perfect pattern, but it tends to be less uniform and it makes it more difficult for us to manage. So it's for our convenience rather than the bees that we put it in. Through the summer, it's really about the honey collection and then the honey extraction, and that's a very messy business but very productive. And last year we did very well for our 3 hives. We got over £200 of honey. We sell the honey at events in the orchard, but also through the Greenery Cafe. And last year we made £1,200, which all goes back into friends projects within the park. I'm sure we all appreciate just how important bees are to us all. Of course, they're vital pollinators, both for the flowers in our gardens and fruit, but also for crops. And as is widely known, they've been under threat throughout the world in recent years. The bees seem to survive very well in urban environments, and there are more and more beekeepers, certainly in London and around London, and I'm sure they make a vital contribution to the ongoing safety and benefit of the bee population. So apart from it being a very rewarding and enjoyable hobby, I think it's quite a useful thing for us to be doing.